Welcome to Every Night is Game Night, where two busy dads get games to the table by any means necessary. Check us out, along with other great podcasts, at dicetowernetwork.com.
Every Night is Game Night, episode 118, PAX Unplugged 2018 Recap, Part 1. Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to the Every Night is Game Night podcast. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. It is time to cover PAX. Actually, it's about past time we cover PAX. Sorry about that, guys. We ran through the Should I Buy It series in time for the holiday season. Now that we're done with that, now that the holidays are basically here, let's go back into the bin and cover us some PAX. PAX is the big expo, end of the year expo that happened 1 week after the American Thanksgiving. And it is right down the turnpike for me, Interstate 95. I was able to hop in a car, get an Airbnb, and go have some fun. So the next two episodes are going to be our coverage of PAX. And I'm going to spread some clips, some audio clips that I was able to get from different demoers, publishers, a couple gamers here and there. This year, it was a lot easier. Last year, I was demoing for Renegade Games. I was basically at the booth the entire time. So it was very hard to sneak some stuff in. This time, went down there, it was so much better. Demoing is great fun, but I think I'm kind of done, especially with a fun con like PAX. There's just so much to do. So we're going to hear from some people. We're going to hear from a lot of people, actually, in clip form. And then I'm going to fill in with my thoughts, some reviews, some impressions, some previews. When we get to part 2 of the episode, we're going to have some discussion on some bigger, broader topics. This part is going to be about games. Okay, so you know how we roll on ENGN. But first, it is time to get to Liz. With the In Liz We Trust segment. I am so happy to have spent some time with Liz. She was there at the convention. She was also there the next week. She was also here up week, I should say, in Connecticut. We got to game together, spent some good time together, and now we're not going to meet again until the next PAX probably. But she's here, and she's back on Kickstarter, and she has another game for you. Liz, take it away. What do you got for us?
Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and I'm here to encourage your Every Night is Game Night acquisition disorder. Today, I want to talk to you about Roll Through the Ages, The Iron Age, designed by Tom Lehman and published by Eagle Gryphon Games. In this roll and write game, you will build a civilization, choosing whether to build, fight, or trade your way to victory. You'll also have to feed the people who already live in your empire, so watch out. This Kickstarter campaign will support an updated bookshelf edition of Roll Through the Ages Iron Age and its expansion. But if you're interested, you can pick up several other games from Eagle Gryphon's bookshelf series, or even all of them. Also interesting is that your pledge in this campaign truly is a pre-order. The games are already printed and on the boat, so you can expect delivery in February of 2019. Happy gaming!
All right. Thank you very much, Liz. I hope that was another project that was worth a look. But let's get to some games that are released now and will be released in the very, very near future. This is PAX Unplugged. All right. So the first game we're going to cover is Teotihuacan. If you are of the English-speaking variety, Teotihuacan, if you speak Spanish. It is the City of Gods. It is a kind of mid-weight-ish Euro game with some pretty awesome table presence. Before I get to the actual description of the game, I'm going to splash in a clip over here. I actually was able to record my play of this, at least get some clips from the play. And I was really excited because there were some friends that tagged along with me. Check it out. All right, I am here at the first look table. If you guys know anything about cons, they usually have like a bunch of tables with brand new upcoming games with teachers dedicated to teaching them. We are about to learn Teotihuacan, City of Gods, and I have a first. All of Board Gamers Anonymous is with me. I have Anthony and Chris.
What up? Hey, people.
Hey, so we are about to set up a game. Anthony's setting up a game he's going to teach us. Therefore, he is probably going to throttle us. We'll see. I'll check in during the middle of the game just to let you guys know how it's going. My prediction is that I will get slaughtered. If I actually beat one of you guys, be completely ashamed of yourselves.
We're looking forward to it.
Yes, I look forward to the shame.
I'll check in during the middle. Yes, that is right. You heard correctly. That is Anthony, my normal co-host here at Every Night is Game Night, along with Chris. They host Board Gamers Anonymous. A couple of weeks ago, they covered PAX on their podcast. Please go over to boardgamersanonymous.com and check that out. They even mentioned the playthrough that we did of Teotihuacan. They did not discuss what happened in the game, I noticed on that episode. So stay tuned in a bit for that one. All right, so the first thing you're going to notice about a game of Teotihuacan is that it has a big honking Euro board. It's nice and boring with numbers and muted colors and everything. But in the middle, there is this tile system, which over the course of the game, you're going to build up the tile system into a whole pyramid, which is pretty cool. Teotihuacan is a pyramid in the middle of central Mexico, so it's nice that has a little bit of a shout out to that. I'm not saying that this game is oozing with theme, but I definitely appreciated the effort. So the pyramid is basically one of the ways in which you score, and there's also other ways to score. It's a point salad experience. I mean, you can go up certain tracks. There's a lot of tracks. You can nail certain combinations of spots on the board. It says a lot in terms of the point salad nature of it. You could probably do pretty well without hammering the pyramid. There's all sorts of other ways to score. The main action of the game is actually on the sides of the board. So I've been there, I've been to Teotihuacan, and it's actually funny because when you go, you can walk around the base, you can kind of walk the circumference of the base, and that's kind of what you're doing in the game. You are moving your workers around the circumference of the base of Teotihuacan. In those 8 action spaces, you're going to be able to take workers, and you get 3 workers. Those workers are dice. You're not rolling those dice. They're just, the dice are representing the kind of the strength of the worker. So 1 pip is a wimpy worker, and 2 pips, 3 pips, that kind of thing. So you get 3 of those workers, and they'll be running around the board. They'll be running to the different action spaces. As they go to those spaces, they'll be leveling up for the most part. So you have to try to figure out how to combo them together, how to get the best workers to the best spaces, how to gather them together because they're more powerful together if they visit different spaces. So that's kind of the essence of what you're going to be doing in the game. And I'll be honest with you guys, that teach, and I know people have been complaining about the word the teach. I'm going to call it that way because I find it a lot easier. So Anthony's teach of this game took 20 minutes. Not because it's a complicated game, because I just find that worker placement takes a long time to teach because you got to explain every single space, what it does, and then, the different pointality ways to score. So I was just kind of doing stuff for the first round. So, I got the basic point about the rondelle and the workers running around, but I didn't get to the finer point until a little bit later in the game. But before we get to that, let's check in on our progress after the first round. Let's go back to PAX. I am back with Board Gamers Anonymous. We are joined by their friend Greg. Say hi, Greg.
Hello.
We are through, I'd say, 45% of the game. Game was 3 rounds. We finished round 1. Chris, you have not played this before. How's it coming together for you?
It's not, but thank you for asking.
Remember how I said if you lose to me, you should be ashamed of yourself? Well, Chris is 12, 14 points behind or something? Okay, got it.
Well, as we know, playing board games is all about shame. So that's why I play a lot of them, because I have a lot of shame.
It balances out with the last game we played, so it's fine.
They played a game called Barrage. Apparently, Chris was the ultimate winner by 17,000 in a game where its victory points track only went up to 60 or so. So there you go. This is the scoring gods coming back at you.
Now I'm ready for my future career as a damologist, a hydroelectrologist.
We're going to work on water, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
That's what we got to do.
How's this game coming together for you? This is your first time playing, right?
First time playing. I'm enjoying it very much, except for the lack of feeding people.
There is feed your people in this game, so if you don't like that, it's not too bad. But if you are against that, just run. We'll get into final scoring after we finish our game. All right, that was after round 1. There are 3 rounds in that game, so had a little bit more time to kind of let the rest of it sink in. 2 things in terms of game description came together for me. The first we mentioned at the end of that clip, there is feed your people. It's not very complicated, but it is there. And the main currency of the game is cocoa. So cocoa is another one of the resources that you can get around the board. They got that right. Cocoa was a pretty revered thing in the Mayan culture. I'm wondering why they didn't use corn or maize in Mayan culture and some of the other First Nations peoples down in central Mexico. There was this myth that the people were made of corn, basically. Like it was so central to their whole deal. So I'm not sure why cocoa made the cut, but oh my god, I'm tangenting. That's pretty good though. It says a lot that I'm able to get myself in that mindset, even though the game is not trying too hard. It doesn't actually fight the theme, which is definitely something that some Euro games do. So I enjoyed that. Yes, so there is cocoa. You have to gather it. If you don't have enough at the end of the round, then you lose points. So it's not too difficult. The thing that is difficult, though, is that when you visit the different spaces and there's somebody there, you have to pay cocoa. So it is a definite part of the management of the game. You're not just scoring points. You have to have this management piece of it. You have to have enough cocoa to visit the spaces that you want. Getting cocoa is often a disadvantageous action, blah, 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 blah. The second thing that really came together for me after, a little time in the game is as those workers get better, as they go from 1 pip to 2 pips to 3 pips, when they hit 6 pips, they do what the game calls ascend, which is that worker, quote unquote, retires and you get the dice back, but it sets back to 1 and you get some sort of special power, which is basically a free action. So that's where the combo chaining of the game comes together. A couple other ways as well, but that's a big one. If you can kind of set it up so that your workers ascend, you get some bonuses. Those bonuses chain into the next bonuses. So that's so satisfying. I really, really enjoyed that. That ended up being the key to the game, the key to who ended up being the winner. Let's check back in one more time and see who finally won the game. All right, we have finished our game of Teotihuacan 2.5 hours after beginning the game. Yes, of course, I have to note the play time, including teach. Greg won with an explosion of points, which is kind of how this game works. Points kind of combo together and everything. I finished second, so the board game is an honest guys should feel really bad about themselves. So, confirm.
We do feel really bad about ourselves, but for completely other reasons.
Anthony, you've played this game before. You want to just give your quick thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love this game because it's so many different things happening, and it all flows together so smoothly. It's not just like random stuff on a board. So
there's this mechanic I mentioned in the description about ascending. So when you're taking your die and moving them around, they can go up 1, 2, 3, 4. When they go from 5 to 6, they do this thing called ascending, where they go back to 1, go to a certain spot, but then you can kind of make a bunch of effects happen. So that's really cool. You can just time things so that a lot happens. So what Greg did, he was able to ascend 2 dice at the very end and just time it so that he could just go ahead and points immediately. So that was a really, really good move.
Yeah, I think it was great being able to do that all at one time, especially getting to the top of one of the God tracks, because I was able to ascend both of the dice at the same time. That gave me an additional 18 points that I wasn't even anticipating, and that was what won the game right there.
So you can win the game by not even anticipating winning, so just...
I didn't expect
which gives the incredible wrong perception of this game. It's actually a pretty thinky, strategic game. Greg happened to play really well. He was surprised by how many points he scored. Chris, at the end of the day, you've only played it once. Buy, play, dodge. What do you think?
I think it's a play. If you played Zulkan before, because it's the same designer, it does have that same kind of feel to it as far as maximizing points based upon certain locations, but it's very tight throughout the game. So I'll definitely play it again. I think the combos are something you need to see in order to know what to be doing for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's a buy for me. I gave it a buy when I first played it. and continues to be a buy. I love this game, and having played it half a dozen times now, I'm still finding new ways and new ideas for how to approach things. So
It's a little dry for me, theme-wise, but that doesn't mean the game is bad. In fact, I enjoyed the game. It is a definite solid play. If it was my type of game, it would be closer to a buy. But, I enjoyed it. So that was Teotihuacan, or if you are of Spanish descent, Teotihuacan, right? Could you say that, Anthony?
no.
Awesome. Great playing with you guys.
Take care.
Awesome, thanks.
The more I think about it, though, that clip was a couple of weeks ago. As I sit here in the editing room, I want to play it again. Preparing the episode, preparing the description, I was back. I was back walking around in real life, walking around the pyramid, and in the game, moving my workers around the rondel, around the pyramid. And it's just a cool little engine. It's a cool little system of cascading points and everything. Unique enough where it stood out. There's a lot of these Euros that can't really stand out. This one does. And it's getting me. I'm getting a little bit of the bug to play it again. So I hope I can. I do not own it. I have some friends that do, though, so I will be bothering them. Brant over there, I believe he probably has that laying around somewhere. So I'll hit you up, man. I'm going to take another play. So that is Teotihuacan, City of Gods. All right, the next game on the slate is The Reckoners. This is another game that I only demoed, only got one play in. I have not gotten more in. I definitely do want to get more plays in moving forward. I was really looking forward to this game because it is a big cooperative dice chucker. The last big cooperative dice chucker that came out this year was Thanos Rising. That game was disappointing for various reasons. I still have it because it has a big Thanos mini. I'm shallow, yes, and Thanos is my favorite character. Not because the game is great, but because it has Thanos. So I was really excited to see if The Reckoners was really better, as a lot of people have said. So this game is based on the novel series by Brandon Sanderson for young adults of the same name. Although I'm a little bit familiar. I have not read the series, but I'm familiar with it. It's definitely on my to read shelf. But you don't have to know anything, not a thing about the series in order to kind of get what the game is going for. The instruction book actually says that they try to avoid spoilers, so there's just not too much there. I think the heroes are the same name and the villains are the same names. And that's basically it. But what are you doing? So you are a normal person, and the normal person, in game terms, you're going to have a mini and you're going to have a board. You're going to have some dice. That's going to be your kind of personal stuff. You are going to be fighting these epics. The epics are supervillains who are the superpowered people of the world, but they're bad and they're kind of trying to dominate things. So you are the resistance. The epics are represented by these cards, and the cards you put on the city districts, which are their own trays. So you have trays, and the city districts have trays that are being attacked by the supervillains. And then there's a bigger villain who has his own tray. A lot of trays, a lot of table presence. I mean, I told you Teotihuacan was big. This game is really honking. So make sure you make room for that and for space to roll your dice because you're going to be rolling a lot of them. So the personal trays are basically there for tracking. The action is on the dice. So the dice, what you're going to be doing, you start with 6 of them. You're going to get more as the game goes because you're going to buy upgrades and stuff. But you're going to roll them, and it's Yahtzee style or King of Tokyo style, where you roll them, and then you keep whatever you want, and then you roll them again, and then you roll them again, and that's what you got. As I said, the dice are custom, and they have different actions on them. You'll be able to store up some attack. You'll be able to, quote-unquote, contain the bosses, which is, kind of put up defensive measures against them or prevent them from acting a certain way. You can take out some minions or mooks. So, there's going to be mooks running around, which are the police force, like in any good action movie where the bad guys control the city. There's a lot of cops, and the cops just kind of go down in one hit, like stormtroopers or whatever. So you got those guys. You have a dice that can do some of that. You get some money. It's one little thing that you get per dice, and then you're going to collect all those resources at the end. And then as a group, you're going to collectively kind of apportion what gets rolled. So if one person rolls 6 attack, they're going to, you say, oh, okay, I'm going to devote all 6 attacks to this boss, or I'm going to move over to this other tray and, 3 attack here, 3 attack here. Join me because I have 5 attack for this thing, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of communication that happens. That's probably the best part of the game is after you've resolved all the dice, having that discussion among your friends and seeing what goes where. So, everybody can kind of scan the board, see what they need, and just do a lot of stuff. 6 dice is a lot. And if you have a lot of people, that is a lot of effects that you're going to be resolving at once. So that's kind of, that was really fun. It was fun because, I was playing with complete strangers. I mean, it was just me, Anthony and Chris. They're not going to come play the Reckoners with me. In fact, I played this right after I played Teotihuacan, and they went to go play some big fat Euro. And I'm like, nope, thematic co-op for me. So I played with a whole new group, and we ended up really being able to break the ice, communicate with each other, share our pool of resources, and get a lot done on our turns, fighting back these monsters or fighting back the supervillains and taking away their powers and buying power-ups and all that good stuff. Then the enemy went, and we had the demoer was Brett Sobol. We're going to hear from Brett in a second. He had a pretty good time activating the enemies. So he's like, this enemy does this, this enemy does this, this enemy does this, this enemy hurts you for a damage, this enemy blows up the population. The population is like boss victory points. If they reach a certain amount of kills in the population track, they win. So you don't want that to happen. They set up barricades. They do a lot of stuff. I mean, every single boss is activating, so you have 4 players, 5 mini bosses are activating. It's not too bad, but it's like, you have to do every single one of them. And then Steelheart activated, which is his tray has 4 tracks. So you have to activate all 4 tracks and his mini moves. It's a lot of stuff. So then by the end of the enemy turn, a lot has changed. The entire board state has changed basically. And that whole issues of giant enemy and giant player turns, that's basically what I asked Brett about. So let's see what he has to say.
I am here at the Navu Games booth. We have just played the Reckoners, and I'm here with the co-designer as well as one of the co-founders of Navu Games. This is Brett Sobol. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
We just went through a demo of the Reckoners, 4 players. It was really fun. I think the entire table had a good time. What were you going for in terms of the feel of the game?
We wanted the game to obviously represent the source material with the Reckoners books by Brandon Sanderson, but when we were designing the game, one of the biggest things that we had to ask ourselves was, what does it mean to be a Reckoner? And so we looked to the books to answer that question. And the biggest thing that we strove towards was really making a plan and enacting that plan, especially when it goes wrong. So that's where the dice came in.
Right. So the feel I got from this game, in terms of things going wrong, things go to heck. Really fast. So there's a big player turn, and the players do a lot. Everybody has 6 dice, and you use all 6 dice. And then the enemies go, 5 different enemies go, and then the big boss Steelheart goes. And so it's you do a bunch of stuff, and I feel like I'm winning. And a bunch of stuff happened, and we're going to lose. And I'll do it, and it kind of goes like that. So I'm guessing, in terms of reacting to what's going wrong, that's kind of what part of the plan?
Yeah, absolutely. The goal is to feel both the incredible tension throughout this and have really those emotional highs and lows as you're going through this game. So at the end, you feel like you've succeeded in one already 15 times, and then it all comes down to one big moment. And that's really the type of experience I think we're hoping to capture here. Heavy thematic as well as meaningful choices inside of this game.
All right, I noticed that every time I come by here, you have less and less product, so that's always a good sign.
It's been a great show so far, and we're really thrilled with how Reckoners has done so far.
That was Brett Sobol. You just heard about the Reckoners. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure.
All right, cool.
All right, so that is a feature, not a bug. The swinginess of the game, and that's ultimately where I'm going to land in terms of an impression after first play. I have to play it more. But I don't know how I felt about that. I don't know how I felt about doing all that stuff and feeling so awesome and then having it just kind of all reset, even when you kill a mini boss, you kill him, all you're doing is kind of delaying things. So he might grow in power and then he's like, oh my God, he's getting all his actions and I got to kill him. And you kill him. Right at the end of that enemy phase, a new one comes out. So it's okay, you could do a little bit less, but I didn't really make progress. I didn't feel like I made progress, So, yeah, I mean, the progress is in, obviously getting Steelheart down and eventually killing him. but that swinginess, it felt a lot like I was binging and purging. It was very, like, it's kind of disorienting. I say that, it's much better than Thanos Rising. It really is. Like, I mean, Thanos Rising, there was the exact opposite. Like, there was times where, like, nothing happened. Like, you'd have entire turns where the rolls just kind of went against you and didn't do anything. At least you could do something. At least, there's a cooperation and there's a lot of actions. We did not have a flat turn of that game. I almost think it's impossible to have a flat turn because there's so much to do. It's just that it comes at the cost of these enemy turns that just like this, a lot happens. So at the end of the day, I want to play it again. Am I going to rush out and trade for a copy or procure a copy some other way? Probably not. But I do want to play. I have some friends here in Connecticut that has Reckoners. I'm thinking of one in particular. Matt, if you are listening to the podcast, hit me up. And so that we can play and I can, kind of solidify my thoughts about it. But that is the Reckoners. All right, so that was it for our first impressions. Let's get to a proper review, a game that I was able to play at PAX, pick it up, and get it to the table a couple of times after that because it is small, it's compact, and it plays solo, which is, you guys know, love when games are small and compact and play solo. This one is Star Realms. Star Realms Frontiers, actually. So this is the second big box, quote-unquote, expansion. So this is a new full deck of cards, just delivered to backers very, very recently. Star Realms was designed by Darwin Castle and Rob Dougherty, published by White Wizard Games. If you don't know anything about Star Realms, let me just go through it real fast. It is a card-based dueling game, and it is also a deck builder. 2 players are going to have, dinky little decks, deck of 10 cards. You pull 5 of them, you play them all. You get some money, you get a little bit of combat, and then you purchase cards from a center row of cards, and that row is going to rotate. So in that way, your deck is going to get better and better and better, and you're going to be able to accomplish more and more things. You're going to build your deck in a way where you coordinate colors. So when the colors combo together, they are going to, give more effect. So like, red cards combo with red, blue cards combo with blue. In Frontiers is actually the innovation where there's the double ally. I don't know if it was in Colony Wars, so I don't have that one. He was here, where if you have 2 cards that are the same color, that it has like this uber effect. That's like really more powerful effect. So that was a little bit of an innovation. But in terms of innovation, in terms of like the actual 80 card deck itself with Frontiers, that's kind of it. I don't know how much design space there is to really like blow things out. Like you think of a game like Magic the Gathering, you think of like, the big LCGs, CCGs and everything. There's a lot of room to kind of grow. Here, the design space is so tight. I mean, that's to its benefit. You want a simple game that you could just give to somebody you can play really fast. But what happens is you can't really get a lot of changes, a lot of different stuff. I mean, this ship costs 2, gives me 2 healing and a gold. This other ship costs 2, gives me 2 gold and a healing. And then in this one combo effect is like 2 attack. This one combo effect is 2 gold. But we're talking changes on that kind of level. It's not that this thing that's going to completely blow you away. But if you love Star Realms, you're going to just love more cards for it. And I'm sure this will release in the app, and the app is like this amazing resource for Star Realms. These very, very low cost. You can get all these cards. So the uniqueness of Frontiers, which I really enjoyed, is the solo co-op mode. Frontiers comes with 9 cards that represent big bad bosses. These kind of pitched space battles versus these, big threats, these intergalactic threats and everything. So the different cards have different rules for manipulating the main deck into an enemy that will give you some trouble. So I thought it was pretty ingenious how they took, like, they didn't add any components. It's just these cards that kind of create these rules, and stuff happens. So like, there's a couple cards that represent the different factions. So you get Blob Assault, where you take a couple of the blob cards out, and it represents its own blob deck, and it has rules for how it attacks you. It's the same thing for the machine cults, which are the reds. The same thing for the yellows. I forget exactly what they're called right now. A couple of other different variations. One I really liked was this thing was called the Dimensional Horror, where you play a card, you just like pull a card on the enemy's turn, and it goes into like this tentacle pile. So like you get like the red tentacle, the yellow tentacle, and you have to like beat all of those cards, which is really difficult because they're playing cards and they're like using effects and they're going after you. So that one I enjoyed. There's another one called the automation, which is play one card for the enemy, they play 2 cards for the enemy, they play 3 cards for the enemy, they play 4, then play 5. That one I didn't enjoy so much. You're playing like 5, 6. No. There's too much tracking. There's too much adding. I don't want to add for the enemies. So I didn't enjoy that one much. But like for the most part, I really did enjoy these kind of pitched battles. It's Star Realms. I love Star Realms. I really enjoy playing it. And I love the fact that, as opposed to many solo modes for these games, you're not playing a different game. You're playing Star Realms. You're playing the same game. And the enemies, it's not as if you have to do a lot of thinking for them. You may have to do a lot of adding for them, which is why the automation boss isn't that great. But you don't have to do anything. You just like play, fire, and go about your turn. It doesn't change. Like you're playing the same basic game, which is really, really great. How they were able to take different, ways of manipulating that base deck. It comes out of the base deck. You could still fit this game in the palm of your pocket and play Star Realms and play it solo and have a satisfying time. It doesn't have a campaign mode. They saved campaign mode for Hero Realms. And I actually, now that we're talking about Hero Realms, I'll get to that in a second, but Hero Realms, the campaign mode has these bosses, these kind of pitch battles as well. What Hero Realms does, and I think I prefer this, is that they actually have different decks for the different bosses. So if you play through that campaign and you go through the story, you find like a deck that's like, okay, now you're fighting this boss, take this 10 card deck, and now that's what the boss can hit you with. I kind of prefer that, but I like the fact that in Star Realms it still works. Like it still works in terms of manipulating the main deck. Very component light, very very easy to kind of get to the table really fast, and go for it that way. So I have to give it a positive recommendation. I really enjoyed my play of Star Realms Frontiers, a solo co-op mode. Where's that campaign, man? I don't know if they're gonna have a campaign. Maybe they'll save all those ideas for Hero Realms, but like a little campaign that's a little bit better than the app. The app is like basically playing Star Realms over and over and over again. They call that a campaign. String some of these bosses together, man. Let me get a campaign. But for now, I'm pretty happy with it. Another thing that I was able to get a chance to play in terms of Star Realms stuff is the legendary commander decks. What Hero Realms did, what was really great, was give you character packs, and the character packs changed up your starting deck. Didn't do it in a powerful way. It's just like, a couple of different cards to give your character a little bit of personality, and they made a big difference. And in Hero Realms, because it has a campaign mode, you get to level up that deck. Well, in Star Realms, there's no campaign, so there's no leveling up. So what they did was they gave you these uber powerful decks to start with. Oh my God. They're these 14 card decks, and there's more powerful cards in them. And there's a lot of them have like double factions. So like, some of the cards like, work for multiple factions. So you just get really powerful really fast. And, it's so powerful, in fact, that if you're going to play somebody with a regular deck, they actually don't recommend that. They recommend that 2 people with regular starting decks play this commander. That's how powerful he is. I really love playing that way. I've played Star Realms enough where I'm a little bit bored with just the main characters. If you're a Star Realms fan, I highly recommend the character packs, the legendary commander packs, I think they're called. So yeah, Star Realms Frontiers, anything Star Realms, man. I'm a big fan of. One last thing before we leave the Star Realms universe. I've always wondered, speaking of Hero Realms, what is the difference between Star Realms and Hero Realms? I got a chance to ask the designer, Rob Dougherty. People have been saying that they're basically the same game with a different skin. I didn't think so. I thought they felt different. It was interesting to hear what the designer had to say when I asked him that very question.
Hey, I am here with Rob Dougherty, co-designer of Star Realms, Hero Realms, White Wizards, Magic, all sorts of stuff. How you doing?
I'm great. Having a good show.
Okay, so we've talked about Star Realms and Hero Realms like a lot on the podcast. They're lovely games. The one question I wanted to ask you is, what's the difference between Star Realms and Hero Realms?
So, Star Realms thematic. So, what the biggest difference is sci-fi versus fantasy.
Theme, yes.
And
but like mechanics-wise.
Mechanically, yeah. So, With the base games, they're pretty similar. There's some Hero Realms has the factions do slightly different things, and the ratio of things that stay in play, and their champions in Hero Realms, their bases in Star Realms. The ratio of things that stay into play is higher in Hero Realms, and also the things that don't stay in play are more powerful for their cost than they are in Star Realms.
Okay.
So there's some, but if you play Star Realms, you're going to understand Hero Realms almost immediately. They get very different when you start adding the expansions. That's really the big difference between the two games.
Because I definitely noticed that in Hero Realms the attack values were bigger.
Yes.
So it felt like I would put a champion or two out, and then they would kind of disappear.
Yeah.
Almost immediately. I imagine that was the intended effect.
Yeah. So basically, because there are more heroes or more champions than there are bases in Star Realms, it's easier to get a lot of them in your deck, and bases or champions are more powerful when you draw them together. So like if you have three, let's say you're playing Star Realms, you got three bases in your deck. If you play one and then your opponent blows it up, and then the next turn you play another and your opponent blows it up, and then the next turn you play another and your opponent blows it up, yeah, that was okay. Yeah. But if you reshuffle and then the next time through you draw and you're like, oh, here's all three bases at once, and then your opponent blows one of them up, and then the next turn you're like, I activate these two bases again, and then they blow one of them up, and then the next turn you get to use the last one again. That is far more powerful than when they clump together, because there are more champions in Hero Realms than there are bases in Star Realms. You're going to get that clumping more frequently. Yeah. So even though those cards aren't comparatively more powerful than the bases, they're more powerful by the nature of more of them being available.
Right.
And
so you got to have more power, more attack to kind of break them down. Exactly. So you're going to have like clouds of champions. They're going to show up. They're going to get mowed down. They're going to show up. They're going to get mowed down. Yeah. It kind of creates for a little bit. Because especially if you don't get bases, like if you're just kind of hitting each other, Hero Realms feels like a more kind of swingy, kind of rock'em sock'em experience.
Yes, yeah. So you can definitely get games of Hero Realms where you don't get defensive stuff, you don't get health gain, and you just plow through each other. Or you can get games where you get some serious health gain going on, and that can be so. The games,
there's more health gain, way more health gain in Hero Realms too.
Yeah, so basically you end up with swingier effects, which gives you how the first game went versus how the second game went, the third game. Sometimes they feel very, very different because different stuff shows up, and you have different. You'll have these different experiences. So it's a little more. It's a little more on nitro, it's fast, a little faster, a little heavier hitting.
That was Rob Dougherty talking about the difference between Star Realms and Hero Realms. You're going to read on all sorts of stuff online about the differences, if you care. I care. Though that's incorrect. We got the real stuff over here. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you.
All right. I was actually always curious about that because as a lover of Star Realms and Hero Realms, they did feel different. Hero Realms definitely felt swingier. Like I felt like, turn 3 or 4, I was putting out these 3-cost things that were doing 7 damage, 8 damage, and I was like, wow, what's going on here? So I talked about that with the Reckoners. I don't know how I feel about swingy stuff. Like I'm down to 14 health, now I'm up to 30 health, and I'm get socked again. Where Star Realms is more of a kind of a steadier beat. But it's nice to know that they've put a little bit of thought into. Not just kind of reskinning the thing, but making it more different. And Hero Realms is definitely kind of pitched more towards that RPG ongoing campaign feel. So Star Realms has the individual battles. So they are getting a lot out of a little. I mean, this is a very simple engine, but they seem to be getting as much out of it as they possibly can. And I'm very happy for it. Very happy to review all that stuff. So that is Star Realms Frontiers et al. All right, for this next part of the episode, let's get into some previews. A little bit shorter, less to say because I haven't played the entire games. These 3 games were kind of prototypey, so to speak, or they were, kind of on the verge of being done, not released quite yet. But I definitely wanted to bring them to you because on some level, I'm looking forward to all 3 of these. The first one I'm going to cover is 1001 Odysseys. About a year ago, over a year ago, I think this was in the teens, this episode we had Chris Ceslick on of Asmati Games to talk about One Deck Dungeon, and he mentioned 1001 Odysseys at that point. This was over a year ago, and it's still not done. But it's getting there. It is getting really, really close. They're going to launch the Kickstarter on January 3rd of 2019, which is very, very soon. I hope to be able to connect with Chris on a preview series episode to bring you that, at least a preview of that. But I did get a chance to not only play this game, but demo it. I volunteered an afternoon of my time. I was very happy to do it because it was one of the games I was looking forward to. And I got a chance to talk with one of the main writers of the series. Check out this first interview with Julie.
Hey everybody, I'm here with Julia Urquhart of Asmati Games. I am here helping to demo 1001 Odysseys. Welcome to the show, Julia.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Julia is one of the primary writers for 1001 Odysseys. We just ran a group through. We ran them through one chapter, and then they loved it so much they ran them to another chapter. So that should tell you a lot. But tell me a little bit about 1001 Odysseys. Maybe just break down like basically how the game works.
So 1001 Odysseys is a choose-your-own-adventure game where you start out as the humans on the starship, the Odyssey, and you have to kind of go through and find your way back home again because you've gone through a portal and found yourself lost in space. You come across a group of aliens that make up the Federation, and they're very kind to you, but you're still kind of on your own, separated from Earth. So in 1001 Odysseys, you play through different stories where you're interacting with aliens and other strange creatures, trying to find your way back home again.
So if you're trying to get a visual of what's happening on the board, so it's basically like time stories in a sense where you have a bunch of components that are generic. So you have cards with letters on them, and you have tokens, and you have a map. And the map, and basically what happens is, depending on what story you're playing, you can kind of go different directions. So like the same cards will work for different stories. How many stories are you going to launch with during the Kickstarter?
So for the main game, for the Kickstarter, we're going to have 4 stories. And a story is going to be anywhere from about 8 to 12 chapters. A single chapter will take about a half hour to an hour of gameplay. So you really have a lot of content here for the main game.
And it's choose your own adventure. Think like the Tales of the Arabian Nights, only the stories make sense. The reason I wanted Julia on is because she wrote the stories, so you can imagine how intricate it must be to write stories that just go from A to B to possibly C, and then D to F, and to all over the place. That must have been crazy.
It is really quite an intricate process that I had never done before, and kind of what we're doing here is something that hasn't really been done before in terms of putting out a choose-your-own-adventure story game that has, its own brand new IP, but is also kind of really light and fun to play. We had a lot of inspiration from Tales of the Arabian Nights. In fact, we played that, and I was really enchanted with it. I was like, I want to make a game like this, but one that makes sense.
Yeah. And simpler. There's no skills. There's a lot of like overhead, like a point system. There's none of that here. It's just a very stripped down experience. So the people might be kind of like, oh, where's the game there? But you're trading all of that kind of mechanical stuff for a story that makes sense and a story that's much more integrated. And you'll see on the Kickstarter, there's a lot of like cool art attached as well. So like I'm really enjoying demoing this. I'm really looking forward to the Kickstarter.
I'm super excited to share it with the world. We first started this game, the brainstorming of it 4 years ago. It's been 4 years in the making. Sort of the different races and elements have stayed the same throughout that, but we've mostly been making gameplay changes throughout because we want to make sure that the gameplay is solid and we want to make sure that people have fun as they're playing.
Yeah, this was supposed to launch a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It's been a long time. But
sorry, I put him on the spot.
But you know what? We've really perfected it. We've been doing demos at Gen Con, for example, every year, and it's just been a completely different game every single year. The whole, the actual world building was kind of set in stone very early on, so we knew exactly the kind of world we wanted to tell this story in, but we had to just find the right gameplay system to make it work.
All right, so that's 1001 Odysseys, hopefully appearing on Kickstarter in January.
January 3rd.
That's pretty certain. That's pretty settled. It's January 3rd. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. I really appreciate it.
All right, so that was 1001 Odysseys. Because I really believe in this game, I really want to just kind of hammer down what you're getting when you get into this game. It is a stripped down essence of a choose your own adventure game. The game is basically the map and the book. So you're going to go to different spots in the map, and there's like a system for how spots open up, which is pretty cool. But you're going to read through the paragraphs, and you're going to read through a paragraph, and you're going to make a choice, okay? So the shopkeeper offers you a dead rat. Are you going to buy the dead rat? Are you going to politely pass? Are you going to punch the shopkeeper in the face? So, those choices are going to have ramifications, and you're going to acquire things, but they're not like actual items that are like have any useful skills. So like you get a bow, and then the bow will help you defeat the monster. The items are like you get a permit to visit the government or something like that. So if you don't have the permit, you can't take a certain choice. But if you do have the permit, that choice opens, and it's just pure story. I mean, it is the distilled essence of a story. You could play this with your family. You could play this, kind of around a campfire type thing. Really, really stripped down to the experience. As you're going to hear in a second, the story is the star. So with that in mind, I spoke with Chris. Chris was at the booth, and I wanted to get his thoughts about how he distinguished this game from all the other choose your own adventure games. If you know Chris, he's very opinionated, a little bit muted. Definitely get him off camera. He'll tell you exactly what he thinks. But it was fun, and I wanted to get his thoughts about what he wanted this game to do versus those other games.
Hey, this is Jason. I'm back at the 1001 Odysseys table. I was going to leave it at talking with Julia, but Chris over here, Chris Seslick, who is the main designer of the game. Hi, Chris.
Hey, how's it going?
We were just talking about what this game does and how it answers a lot of the bigger storytelling games. We're talking Choose Your Own Adventure, Tales of Arabian Nights. Like, what does this game do that carries forward that message? So you want to give the people some knowledge?
Yeah, definitely. So it's always good to learn from the other games that come before you, because they fall into the pit that you get to jump over. And one of the things that we learned most was that the story should be the star. And we kept stripping away extraneous mechanics. We don't need to be rolling dice or doing weird things with cards. Keep it simple and let the story shine.
No skills.
Yeah, nothing, no crazy rules. The rules are super simple, and you just keep going. And the other main lesson that we learned, especially from a couple of other games that have tried to do choose your own adventure style pathing, is that every choice you make should be substantial and should always move things forward. You should never be tempted to go back and try the other thing without replaying the game, because then why were you even choosing in the first place?
Right. So we were just talking about the Choose Your Own Adventure book from Z-Man. We're going to be a little political and maybe a little bit more than off recording, but you reached a point at the end of the chapter at Choose Your Own Adventure where you would say, do you want to go back to the library or do you want to go back to the living room? And A, you're going back, which adds a lot of time. And B, maybe you didn't even see the living room. They're basically telling you, here's an important thing. So it kind of it does so much work outside the context of the story.
Yeah, so we realized, because we tested that game out earlier this year, and we realized a couple things from it. One, it's okay but not immensely interesting to have choices that are either right or wrong. Like, do you go down the left path or the right path? And one of them's a spike pit.
Do you fight the lion or do you run away? I fight it. Well, too bad.
You're dead. You were eaten by lions. So one of the things we did with our choices is make sure when you have a choice, the outcomes of that choice are two different interesting things. But also, going back during the game is just kind of it just encourages you to try every single thing. And it also signposts the fact that some of those choices were wrong.
Right.
And so we try to do something different.
All right, and that different things, 1001 Odysseys. I hopefully will have a Kickstarter preview, either with Chris or with Julia or somebody else when it launches in January. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thanks again for trying out the game with us.
All right, so that was 1001 Odysseys. I'll be front and center for this. You guys know I love my story. It's whimsical. It's very light. I can play it with my family. It just ticks a whole lot of boxes for me. So I'm hoping to get a preview series together for that in the next couple weeks and get that going. Speaking of adventure, so this next game is called the Everrain. Very different game, big board, big minis. This is a cooperative 1 to 4 player survival adventure pirate ship game. So we've done survival adventure before. We haven't done pirate ships. So this one stuck out to me on Kickstarter, stuck out to Liz. Liz featured it on one of our In Liz We Trust segments. So I was happy to go to the booth, be able to say, hey, we previewed your game and we'd like to learn more about it. So I got a chance to sit down, do a demo with Adam Smith, who is the lead designer, working with Grimlord Games. Let's hear about the Everrain.
Hey, this is Jason here. I'm here with Adam Smith, the designer of the Everrain. We featured this, or Liz featured this on the Kickstarter segment a couple of weeks ago. It is an open area exploration ship-based game. Pretty unique stuff, so maybe you could give us the overview, Adam. Oh, first of all, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Actually, where are you from?
I'm from London. It's a UK-based company.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what I'm seeing over here. I'm seeing very dark waters. I'm seeing big old honking pirate ships. I'm seeing big old gods. This is some pretty cool stuff.
Oh, thank you. So the Everrain is a sea-based exploration game. It's set in a world where it's been raining non-stop for a year and the world's starting to flood. And the reason that is because an old god's woken up and starting to remake the world in its image. And you have to go out into the world and try and stop that old god from rising. And it's a completely cooperative game, so everyone's in charge of their own ship. They're a captain of their own ship, and you have to hire crew and go out and explore the world and explore different locations and get in ship battles and board enemy decks and loads of cool stuff like that.
What really stands out to me about this game mechanically is the way that your crew works. So you have your own player board, and you have a little picture of a ship. Only before you do anything, you have to assign crew to the different areas. So if you wanted to look out, you have to spend an action, put a guy in the crow's nest. If you want to explore, you got to put a guy on deck. If you want to attack, someone has to be at the guns. So it adds that extra layer of tactical kind of thinking that isn't always in one of these exploration games. Usually it's just about whatever's happening on the map. But you added that extra layer. I thought that was really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, the crew are quite an important part of the game because you have to manage your crew very carefully. You have to make sure that they're healthy and they're happy. If not, they can mutiny. If they suffer from too much strain from working them too hard, it can kill them. So they're a really big part of the dynamic.
A really underrated thing about exploration games, like I think players want to manage stuff. It's just don't make it annoying. And I think you guys are kind of hitting it. Like I'm not seeing final components. There's still stuff to work on in the game, so I can't really give like an official review or anything. But it looks really, really promising. What are we looking at in terms of timeline?
So we're looking to ship this around October 2019. The Kickstarter just finished a couple of weeks back, and then we're going to be opening the Pledge Manager for late pledges January. And yeah, we'll be constantly updating. If you go and look at the Kickstarter, we do really regular updates talking about the development of the game.
This one looks really promising, really different in the space. I don't know a lot of sea exploration games that put as much detail into the little management pieces of it, and it looks really cool. All the best to you. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, so that was Adam Smith on the Everrain. So I gotta admit, I did not follow this particular Kickstarter as it was live. I pinned it because it looked cool, but I can only back so much. Let's see, I backed Cloudspire. I got that one coming in next year. I backed Assassin's Creed. And that one was, caused a little bit of uproar because of, some issues with that campaign. Don't have all the money in the world, but I definitely kept an eye on this one, and I looked a little bit closer as we, set up for the interview and everything. Found out that it wasn't exactly the most well-received Kickstarter. Mostly because there wasn't a lot of information about it on the main page as the campaign was live. So it was definitely a work in progress rulebook that was there. Not all the gameplay was fleshed out. It was more like kind of a, check out these cool minis, check out the big board, check back our game, which I thought it was interesting because it showed the development of Kickstarter, for better or for worse. So in Kickstarters now, I think there's more and more pressure on companies to deliver more before the campaign launches. So, maybe a couple of years ago, you would have a game, and I think it was like Seventh Continent in this particular case. Like, you looked at Seventh Continent, it wasn't quite clear what that was. Or Kingdom Death Monster. I mean, it was like at the dawn of Kickstarter. There wasn't even a game yet. You just saw a bunch of cool minis. It's like, okay, I'm back in that. You can't do that anymore. Especially because CMON and all these bigger companies, they are hitting Kickstarter with basically finished games, 20 reviewers and 20 paid previews and, a full rule book and, different languages and everything. That's all there. So it kind of puts these smaller companies behind the 8 ball. This is only their second game. The first game was Village Attacks, which is the game I'm hoping to get to the table sometime soon. So they weren't quite prepared for we really need to have our ducks in a row. So they kind of got caught with their pants down a little bit, which created a little bit of anti-buzz. They funded and, it made good money. But I think it could have hit a little bit harder and, have been more well received by the community. But I think the company's learning. And from what I played on the demo side, which was not quite available during the Kickstarter, I really did enjoy what they did with the pirate ship and what they did with the crew and how you have to manage, you have to put the crew in the crow's nest before you can explore, which makes total sense. It's just like mechanics don't have to be like crazy or innovative, like intuitive. It felt very intuitive. I felt like I was on that deck commanding, you go here, you go here. I don't have a guy here anymore. I can't shoot the cannon because I put him up in the crow's nest. Okay, go down from the crow's nest to the cannon so I can shoot. It felt very thematic, and it felt like they put a lot of thought into that. I don't know if the exploration is great. I don't know what the replayability is. None of that stuff. So it may be a project that ultimately struggles, but there's a lot of promise there. Like I was saying before, I think promising is the word I used a couple times in the preview. So, well, there you go. So that was the Everrain. I'm looking forward to seeing how that one shakes out. All right, one last game to go. We're getting close to the hour mark. You guys know I don't like to go too long, but I have to squeeze this game in. Squeeze this game in, please. This game is one that I was looking forward to maybe the most. It was Comanauts, which was designed by Jerry Hawthorne, published by Plaid Hat Games. We did a full episode on the previous game in the adventure book series, the first game in the adventure book series, which was Stuffed Fables. That was episode 78 with Julian from the One Player Podcast. We liked it, but I personally had some hang-ups with the dice, the way the dice were in the game. Specifically, there was an issue where, there's a bunch of dice. You're pulling dice out of a bag, and you roll them. And depending on what color you get, you do stuff. But very often, I would say once per map on average, maybe more, you would pull and you wouldn't get anything useful because of the way there was maybe dice that were already pulled, and it was just such an awesome game, such an awesome story. I still have it, but it was very difficult because of this mechanical issue. So I was looking forward to what Comanauts did, which is this kind of like grown-up version of Stuffed Fables. Not like R-rated or PG-rated, more like, going from a DreamWorks movie to a Pixar movie. DreamWorks is definitely for kids. Pixar has more kind of mature themes. But a kid could watch it. So, I'm not going to say that this is something that a kid can't watch. So I'm wondering what was, how is this carry forward? So this one, I definitely hovered the table like a vulture. And I got my demo and I really enjoyed it. And I got a chance to catch up with Jerry Hawthorne right after to ask about the comparison between this game and Stuffed Fables.
Thank you. I am here at PAX. I have Jerry Hawthorne with me. Jerry Hawthorne is the designer of games you love, like Mice and Mystics, Stuffed Fables, Tail Feathers, games for kids, games with lots of dice, games with lots of theme and story. Welcome to the show, Jerry.
Hi, nice to be here.
All right, so I just finished a demo of Comanauts. It was really funny because I came yesterday and you were there and you ran me through, and I didn't know that you were the designer, so you're giving me this whole story thing, and I'm like, wow, this sounds amazing. Can't wait to demo this thing. Finally got a chance to demo it. Amazing. It was really, really awesome. I wanted to ask a mechanical thing about how this is evolved from Stuffed Fables. Did you intend for this to be kind of like a richer experience, or like maybe take some of the stuff you learned from Stuffed Fables and have a do-over with it? How did you approach it?
Well, the way I approached it is, first of all, I'm always informed, all of my design choices are always informed by the story and the theme of the game that I'm working on. So obviously, in order to bring this new theme to play, I had to do a few different things with the overall way that the game flows. But with the individual mechanics, there were a couple of things in Stuffed Fables that I wanted to change. I didn't want the movement to be a roll and move kind of situation, and so I changed the way that the movement spaces are situated on the board. So instead of rolling a move, you just discard a die to move, and that just makes the game flow quicker, and it makes it a lot more. Players are a lot more able to plan their moves and stuff. But I also did it because I have another game that's coming up that's going to have some bigger miniatures in it, and I wanted to have larger spaces so that we could have a variety of different scales of miniatures.
Oh, so this is this the next in the line type thing?
The adventure book is a series of games. It's a line of games that we have. They're all planned to be wildly different in theme, but they're going to have some sort of familiarity among their mechanics. So if you know how to play one, then it's really easy to pick up and learn to play the other, but it'll provide a uniquely different experience.
The thing that we noticed at the table, and all of us noticed it who played Stuffed Fables, was the idea that you could take 2 dice that are from your active pool and trade them for 1 in your discard. That was a huge barrier for me in Stuffed Fables, because you'd have that thing where you need to attack, maybe you're at the end of something and you have the big enemy in there, and there's just nothing. Either you didn't pull it or they're already in the discard pile. So is that something that is kind of intentional that you did?
Yes, that was another innovation that came about just because of that barrier and frustration that I think all of us experience from time to time, and so it was just a simple solution for that.
Is that rule or any of the other ones at Comanauts like backwards compatible? Would you recommend using some of those innovations for Stuffed Fables?
Well, if you feel like it would make your Stuffed Fables better, then by all means go ahead and use it. Although there is a character that has that ability already in Stuffed Fables, and so what I did is I just basically gave everybody that ability in Comanauts. So.
Okay, so it's not something that you would like put out as an official thing, but if you want to do it, do it.
You can always change that character's ability to swap 1 for 1 instead of 2 for 1. He just has an upgraded version of that ability.
Okay, so that was Kobe Dowd from Flat Hat Games. He's chiming in. He's just listening. He's listening to his talent talk. So I just wanted to make sure he was on the podcast. Okay, so I'm sorry about that. I interrupted your flow. Talking about kind of changing characters to do the whole discard thing, making Stuffed Fables a little bit more of a kind of cleaner experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think every designer probably tries to improve upon their work and change and mix things up and see if you can get a better gaming experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. Cannot wait for Comanauts. We're looking toward, like January-ish?
Yeah. It should be coming out real soon, but in the next few weeks, sometime in January.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kobe.
Thank you.
So that was Jerry Hawthorne and Kobe Ross from Plaid Hat. I'm looking forward to Comanauts. I mean, I was really crazy for 1001 Odysseys. I am just as gaga for this game. I'm getting it as soon as it's released. I will have a review of that game as soon as I get it played, probably earlier in the year. I love my story, and the fact that Stuffed Fables was just close. The content was great. The story was great. The system is great. It's just those little rules with the dice and some of the movement stuff that was really a barrier for me. Sounds like they addressed a lot of that, and I really enjoyed my play. This is not a big complicated game, still kind of child appropriate, but I loved it. I love the play, and I can't wait to get it to the table. That was Comanauts, and that was PAX for me in terms of the gameplay. Next week, there are more games. It's a really good con for games. So I'm going to have some reviews. I'm going to have some designers and publishers on to talk about, I guess, issues in the greater hobby, so to speak. I was looking, I had some questions about, especially like mergers. That seems to be the theme, and non-Asmodee mergers. We'll get into that. The company's getting bigger and bigger. And I'll give my overall impressions of PAX next time. But I think that is sufficient for an episode now. I'm going to cut the sign off nice and short like I do for these big hour-long episodes. I'll just remind you to hit us up on the ENGN_podcast on the Twitter, Every Night is Game Night Facebook group, everynightisgamenight.com. Go ahead, throw us a rating on iTunes. That is the show. As Anthony would say, go ahead and grab a game off of that shelf and let's make every night a game night.